You wake up on a Tuesday. That detail matters somehow. Not a Monday, not a Friday. A Tuesday. The most forgettable day of the week. The day nothing important is supposed to happen. You're late for work. You can tell by the angle of the light coming through the curtains. You try the lamp. Nothing. You go to the window. The street below is empty. Not quiet morning empty. Wrong empty. The kind of empty that takes a moment to register. Because your brain keeps insisting it must be something normal. A holiday you forgot. A power outage. Something that has a simple explanation. Then you see the car on its side at the intersection. Then you see what's moving around it. You stand at that window for 4 minutes. You count them later, trying to remember everything about the last 4 minutes of your old life. 4 minutes of watching and not understanding, and then understanding. You don't scream. You're surprised by that. You always assumed, in the abstract theoretical way people think about disasters, that you would be the kind of person who screamed. You don't. You close the curtains. You sit on the edge of your bed. You breathe. Then you stand up. You go to your kitchen. You open every cabinet. You line everything up on the counter. Canned beans, pasta, rice, 3 protein bars, half a bottle of olive oil, a bag of flour. You fill every container you own with water from the tap because you don't know how long the water will run, but you know it won't run forever. You find a kitchen knife, a smaller knife, a hammer from under the sink. This is the first thing you learn about yourself. On the first day of the end of the world, you don't freeze, you inventory. It won't save you, but it buys you time. The first week, you stay inside. This is the right decision, though you don't know it yet. Most people who die in the first week die because they go outside. They go looking for family, for answers, for confirmation that someone somewhere has this under control. They find out very quickly that no one does. You listen through the walls. You hear things. You don't go to the window anymore after the second day, because what you see from the window costs you sleep. Sleep you cannot afford to lose. You eat carefully, half portions, quarter portions by day 5. You drink the stored water and ignore the thirst. On the 6th night, your neighbor pounds on your door. You know it's her by the voice, Mrs. Calloway, 63 years old. She brought you soup once when you had the flu. She's screaming your name. She's saying please. She's saying she's alone and she's scared, and she just needs someone. You put your hand on the door handle. You stand there for a long time. You don't open it. You tell yourself it's because you don't know if she's been bitten. You tell yourself it's the smart decision. You tell yourself a lot of things. In the days that follow, lying on your floor in the dark, listening to the building go quiet around you, the screaming stops eventually. Everything stops eventually. This is the second thing you learn. Survival requires you to become someone you don't recognize. The process starts earlier than you think. You leave on day 11. Not because you want to, because you have no choice. The food is gone. The water is gone. You've licked the inside of the olive oil bottle. You've eaten the flour raw because you have no way to cook it. Your body is starting to eat itself. You take both knives, you take the hammer. You take a backpack with everything useful left, in the apartment, which isn't much. You put on the heaviest clothes you own. You open the door. The hallway smells like something you won't describe, even to yourself. You move quickly. You take the stairs. You don't look at what's on the landing of the 3rd floor. You push through the emergency exit into the alley. The city is unrecognizable, not destroyed exactly, just unmaintained. Like someone pressed pause on the entire machinery of civilization and walked away. Trash in the streets. Broken glass. Cars stopped at angles that tell small stories of panic you don't want to read too carefully. And everywhere, the sounds. You move fast, head down, quiet. You've spent 11 days listening through walls, and you've learned a few things about how they move, how they hear, what draws them and what doesn't. You make it 4 blocks before you see the first one up close. You don't think, you act. The hammer, 3 times. You're shaking so badly you almost miss the second swing. You stand over it for a moment. Your whole body is electric with adrenaline and horror and something else, something you're ashamed of immediately. A raw animal relief that it is lying still and you are still standing. You keep moving. You find a grocery store with the back entrance still locked. You break the lock. You fill your bag until your shoulders burn. You eat standing in the cereal aisle, cramming handfuls of granola into your mouth, not tasting it, just fueling, just surviving. You find a second-floor apartment 3 streets over, clean enough, defensible. You move in. You tell yourself it's temporary. You find the group on day 30. There are 7 of them. They've set up in an elementary school 6 blocks north. Fenced yard, solid walls, a kitchen with a gas line that still works. A man named Daniel runs it. Former military, or claims to be. He's calm in a way that looks like control, but might be something else. You don't push on it. They take you in. They have rules. You follow the rules. You pull your weight. You keep watch. You scavenge. You don't complain. You don't take more than your share. For 3 weeks, it almost feels like something. There's a woman named Priya who laughs at things that aren't funny yet, practicing for when they will be again. There's a teenager named Cole who asks you questions constantly about before, about what you did, what things were like, as if building a museum in his head of a world he barely got to see. You tell him about things, small things, traffic jams, bad coffee, the specific smell of a hardware store. He listens like you're describing a miracle. This is the closest you come, in all of it, to something that feels like being human again. These 3 weeks, you memorize them without meaning to. The group fractures on day 61. You knew it was coming. You all did. 2 of the 7 had been building towards something for weeks. A slow disagreement about resources, about decisions, about who Daniel really was, and whether his version of leadership was protection or control. The kind of tension that compounds daily until it isn't tension anymore, it's a break. It breaks badly. You lose 2 people in one night. One to the outside, one to something that should never have happened inside. You don't let yourself think about it too specifically. You can't afford what thinking about it costs. After that, there are 5 of you. Then 4 after Cole gets sick and doesn't recover. You sit with him at the end. You hold his hand. He asks you to tell him something about before. You tell him about the first snowfall of last winter. How the whole city went quiet for an hour. How it looked from your window. He smiles. He closes his eyes. You carry him outside. You give him what dignity you can. Then you go back inside. And you don't cry, because you've somehow run out of the thing. That makes crying possible, and that absence frightens you more than anything you've seen. Day 90. 3 of you left. You, Daniel, and Priya. The school isn't safe anymore. Something in the neighborhood has changed. The pattern of movement outside the fence is different, more frequent, more dense. Something drew them here, or they spread here. Or the logic that governed their movement shifted in some way you can't track. You leave at dawn. You move north. Daniel says there's a hospital 12 miles out. Elevated brick generators. You move toward it. You don't make it 12 miles. You make it 9. Daniel is first. A collapsed overpass, bad footing, too many of them at once, and not enough space to maneuver. You watch it happen, and there is nothing to be done, and you run. You run until you can't hear anything behind you. You stop in the parking lot of a shuttered bank. You're alone. Priya is beside you, breathing hard, not speaking. You look at each other. You keep moving. Day 104. Priya finds a wound on her arm that neither of you remember her getting. She shows it to you in the grey morning light. She doesn't cry. She asks you, very quietly, what you think it is. You look at it for a long time. You say you don't know. You both know that you know. She asks you to stay with her. You do. You stay the whole day. You talk about everything. All the things people talk about when time has a sudden, specific edge to it. Her family. Her life before. The trip she'd always meant to take. The person she'd been in the process of becoming when the world interrupted. She thanks you for not leaving. You tell her she would have done the same. She smiles. She says, probably. By evening it's over. You sit with her for a while after. Then you stand up. You check your supplies. 12 granola bars, 4 bottles of water, both knives. You walk north. Day 119. You don't talk anymore. Not even to yourself. You move, you eat, you sleep in short shifts with your back against something solid. You've stopped thinking in terms of plans or destinations, you think in terms of hours. Get through this hour, then the next one. You've become very good at it. Good enough that when it finally happens, it's almost a relief. Not because you wanted it, but because some part of you has been waiting, and the waiting has been the hardest thing of all. The ankle on a patch of debris. You didn't see in the low light, the sound it makes. You know immediately. You drag yourself to a doorway. You prop yourself against the frame. You look at the street in front of you. The light is coming through the buildings at a low angle, turning everything gold, and you think, irrelevantly, that it's actually quite beautiful. You think about Mrs. Calloway. You think about Cole's face when you told him about the snow. You think about Tuesday, the most forgettable day, the day nothing important is supposed to happen. You were wrong about that. You close your eyes. You were never supposed to be a survivor. Nobody was. That was the thing nobody understood at the beginning, watching from windows, inventorying kitchens, telling themselves they just needed a plan, a group, a destination. There was no surviving this. There was only the length of time between the beginning and the end. You got 119 days. You hope that counts for something.